Most sales and marketing leaders run into three mistakes that stop sales before the handoff from marketing even happens. Today's guest, Scott Leese, has scaled startups to nine-figure exits and built elite sales teams. And when he's not doing that, he's surfing massive waves around the globe. In today's episode, he reveals why chasing the wrong customers, skipping key processes, and hiring too fast can destroy growth. And we get into how marketing and sales can finally ride the same wave instead of wiping out. Let's dive in. Hey there, I'm Joanna Bowser. I'm the Director of Marketing here at ClearVoice. Welcome to the ClearVoice mic, Marketers in Conversation. Today, I'm passing the mic to Scott Leese. He's the founder of Scott Leese Consulting, Milosh Ventures, and the Surf and Sales Summer. Let's jump in and see where the conversation takes us. Welcome, Scott. How you doing?
Hi, Joanna. Good morning.
Good morning. Where are you based, by the way? I should have asked you that before we started, but now I'm just going to ask you on the recording.
I'm based in Austin, Texas.
Okay, got it. I would just moved from Houston to Oklahoma City, so I'm very familiar with the Texas summers. But how is it treating you this year?
Yeah, it's been pretty mild actually. It's not too bad. Not too bad.
Not too bad. It's interesting because I kind of gather from your bio and sort of what I've read about you online that you're really into surfing.
Yeah.
But you live in Austin, Texas, so there's kind of a gap there between you and the nearest wave.
Yeah, there's a gap in terms of can't go surfing every single day type of
sure
thing. But
sure.
I grew up and spent most of my early adult life in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And the water's freezing, the waves are heavy, the wildlife is active, and it's unpredictable a little bit at times.
Sure.
And, as you get older and you have kids and stuff like that, it just got hard to go surf every single day anyways.
Yeah.
So I left the Bay Area for cheaper place like Austin, Texas, which has allowed me to travel more.
Sure.
So, if I can go spend a week in Costa Rica and it's like a 3-hour flight, I get more waves in a week in Costa Rica than I would in a year in San Francisco anyways. So
right.
People always say that to me. They're like, this is incongruent. You're a surfer. You live in Austin. I'm like, yeah, but I travel all over the world. I spent 3 weeks in Australia and New Zealand earlier this year. I'm going to Portugal to go surf in October. So, it's fine. It's fine.
I know we're not here to talk about surfing, but I do remember watching a really great documentary about the big waves off of the coast of Portugal. I think
Nazaré. That's we're headed about an hour and a half north of there is where we're headed.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, we're not really here to talk about surfing today. We're here to talk about sales and marketing, but I always like to just I know you're like, I could really talk about surfing if we want to keep going. I don't know much about it, so it'd be a very short conversation. So we'll go ahead and dive into the sales and marketing side. So I think, for anybody watching and listening, Scott and I were talking before about the sort of the approach to marketing and sales that really is not about a marketing motion and a sales motion, but really looking at it through one revenue motion. And Scott has 20 years, you have 20 years of developing sales team, coaching sales team, building them to exit a company, the whole world of it. Right. So I guess before we get into sort of how marketers can better support sales and vice versa, I'm just curious, sort of give me a little bit about your background so people that are tuning in know who they're hearing from here, just so we can kind of ground it.
Well, I spent the better part of the last couple of decades building and scaling sales teams in tech and in SaaS, opened offices all across the country. I think I was a head of sales, SVP of sales, whatever you want to call it, 6 times. 3 of those companies exited for 9 figures plus, and one of them is still going private, but is worth a couple $1 billion right now. So about 4 out of 6 that I'd say, had a pretty significant outcome. Along the way, I started building my brand and my network on LinkedIn, and I parlayed that into writing a couple books that did pretty well about sales and about sales leadership. I started a business called the Surf and Sales Summit, which is a sort of micro sales and leadership conference that we run in Costa Rica and Portugal and places like this. And then 6 years ago, I decided to go out on my own and start my consulting business. And I primarily work with sort of Series A, Series B startups, kind of anybody going from sort of 0 to 100. That's really my sweet spot. I've always been the kind of first guy in and building things from scratch, not the guy that IBM calls to like turn their sales org around or something like
Sure.
that. So I've worked with about 160 companies in the last 6 years from all over the world, all different types of sales cycles and sales motions and categories and segments and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
Sure. So I think my first question is getting an understanding, a company that is sort of at that ground stage, like just start, maybe not just starting up, like, there's nothing there, but like very early stage. What are some of the, top things you've seen, either mistakes or we put this in early and it really made a difference, across the sort of like across your clients that you've seen that can really be helpful or avoid this for anybody that's building a revenue motion?
Well, number one, people usually start off with way too broad of an ideal customer profile.
Sure.
This is always the case. They think, oh, we could sell to so and so, and we could also sell to so and so, and oh my gosh, this would be great for these people. Well, when you try to sell to everybody, you're not going to do a
Hmm.
very good job at selling to anybody. So I always work with people to tighten your ideal customer profile as much as possible at first. Where are we selling? North America. Okay, what part of North America? You're
Right.
selling to you're selling to consulting agencies. Okay, what
Sure.
size? 100 million, 50 million, 10 million, right? And people, I'm always astounded that founders think that selling to a $1 million organization is the same process as selling to $100 million organization.
Sure.
It's
Absolutely.
not. When you're first getting started, you need momentum and you need traction and you need early results and you need people using the product and you need repetitions, the ability to practice your pitch and things like this. Well, the bigger opportunities you go after, the less likely those things are. Even if you're doing well,
Right.
it could take you 18 months to close a big logo. You
Sure.
will run out of runway. You'll
But yeah,
fume
you're gonna run out of money. Yeah,
oftentimes,
exactly.
right? So that's number one is they don't have the narrow enough ideal customer profile. The second big mistake is they don't document anything. It's just like exists in their head, right? Or some
Hmm.
half-assed kind of Notion document where notes are kind of strewn about and you can't really make heads or tails of it. Certainly if you or I was to jump into the organization, we'd look at it and be like,
Right.
I don't know what's going on here with this.
Sure.
So there's no
Sure.
process. There's no process of
Right.
like, okay, here's the channel that we use. Here's the messaging that we use. Here's what works here. Here's what we're tracking. Here's our pricing. I mean, all of this
Hmm.
stuff is very haphazard sometimes. And that's a big mistake. And the last thing that I'd say is they don't understand the value of stage appropriate hiring. So
Oh,
said
sure. Yeah,
differently,
absolutely.
you go
Yeah.
hire some head of sales or some big account executive who spent 25 years at Oracle or something like that,
Hmm.
and you throw them into your early stage environment and you expect miracles because they have some sort of
Right.
Rolodex or whatever. And it is never, ever, ever works. It takes a special type of someone to be a founding AE or a founding head of sales and go in that small. You have to have a certain type of grit, resilience, hustle. You have to be comfortable with ambiguity and
Yeah.
lack of structure and all this type of thing. And that drives people bonkers who come from a world where, they can open doors because they said, hey, this is Scott from Salesforce. And immediately
Right.
there's recognition, or someplace that has 100% inbound leads. And now you take this rep and they have to do an outbound process. And they're like, oh
Yeah.
God, I don't want to do that. So those three
Yeah.
things are very, very common mistakes that I encounter all the time, even now.
Sure. I mean, they all like that. So I have a career in startups too. ClearVoice is not a startup, but I did come up kind of being employee number three in different capacities at a few different startups. And then I went and made movies, which is another type of startup, right? Especially
Yeah.
putting funding
Wow.
together. So the whole world of it, you're kind of building a new company every time you make a movie. So it's very, very wild. The thing that really stuck out to me in the first piece is the repetition, because it's interesting. It's almost like even if they're not your ultimate target ICP or your target avatar, like even just like going down market just a little bit just to get the reps in, just so you can lift the
Yes.
5 pound weights before you try to lift the 50 pound weights with the enterprise people. Like that's something that like the best client, would that even be something that you might put in place just to get the reps in, kind of going
100%. I
after
mean,
the
yeah,
smaller
yeah, yeah.
accounts?
Yeah, part of the work is who can we get a hold of the easiest?
Right.
Who can we
Yeah.
get on the phone or get a meeting with? Because we need to have as many conversations as possible to figure out, does our pitch even work? Do
Right.
people actually feel this pain that we think that they feel? Do they
Right.
feel it strong enough to be compelled to do something about it? Are we creating enough urgency? Are we demoing appropriately? You don't know these things without data points. And over the
Right.
last few years, it's gotten increasingly difficult to practice like that. When I was first coming up in sales, shit, I could call 100 people and 50 people would pick up the phone. So I had
Sure.
50 at bats to practice every single day. I bet if you went and asked the ClearVoice sales org, how many conversations do you have in a 30-day period? I would be shocked if everybody on the team said more than 50. That's a month. That's a month.
Yeah.
You're starting from scratch. So you just don't get the like live fire practice.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
like to start. I like to start small. Might not be our ideal
Sure.
customer
Sure.
forever, but right now, oh, we can get a hold of them. Oh, they're interested. They have conversations with us. We can engage with them. Oh, they sign up quicker. Maybe that's a 3-month sales cycle instead of an 18-month sales cycle.
Right. Yeah.
That stuff creates momentum and creates learning and insight. So I'm a big proponent of that type of feedback loop in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's funny because so there was kind of a big org change, and there was a new sales leader, new marketing leader, myself and a new RevOps leader. We all kind of like got put in,
At the
installed
same
at the
time.
same time. So we were like, we're going to build something different. Cool. It was great. Like we all get on. But one of the strategic shifts that I made in marketing was from a boiler room strategy to like a Moneyball strategy. Like just get the guys on base as many times as possible
Yeah.
so that they could pitch. Now we've
Yeah.
refined things over the past 2.5 years because we figured, we've learned a lot, right? So we can be a little bit more strategic in certain ways, but I still have that mindset of like, get on base, get on base. Like the more that we can get you like in the conversation with anybody, the more we're going to
Yeah.
learn. Even if it's not a good fit, we can say, okay, great. Now how's the market shifted that's not a good fit?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in our space, with content marketing, especially, like things are changing like every hour. Like
Yeah.
there's like
Yeah.
a new tool out there to help you write content better and all of these
Yeah. Well,
things.
or
So we
the
have
or
to
the
stay,
algorithm changed on
yeah,
you.
you're
It's
like,
like,
cool.
okay,
So all the,
it's July and carousel content and poll content works really well, and
right.
all of a sudden August 1st the algorithm decides those are
Nah.
terrible and
Yeah,
you got to find
exactly.
this new
Long
thing.
form only. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's sort of our take as well as is the repetition. And I think too, I mean, when you think about hiring in an early stage company or a smaller company, even if you're a little more mature but you're still small, which still I think requires some of that grit and like tenacity, right? Then versus a big organization like a Salesforce. So on the sales side, we kind of talked about that as a from your experience on the sales side, what kind of marketing apparatus best serves that sort of sales organization? And what is missing, and then what would you always want to have to help feed the sales machine?
Yeah. One of the things that is missing the most is just communication and interaction.
Mm, yeah.
It people may be surprised to hear this, but it's not that often that the head of marketing and the head of sales like sit down and hang out and have conversations about stuff.
Sure.
That I mean, I was a head of sales 6 times. Once did I work someplace where we had a weekly meeting between sales and marketing.
Wow.
Once. And the only
That blows my
reason that
mind, by the
happened,
way. Like
and the
what?
only reason that happened was because I made it happen. This was the last place that I was at, and coincidentally, the biggest success that I was at. But
Yeah.
I had said to the head of marketing, I said, "Hey, man, we should talk once a week and just make sure like we're on the same page with metrics and results and messaging and." Tell me what your team hates about my team, and I'll tell you what my team hates about your team, and
Sure.
whatever
Sure.
whatever we were talking about. and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so there's not enough communication. Number two, how can marketing help this will piss some people off for sure, but I am so done and over with MQLs and SQLs and all of the ways that marketing orgs have historically been compensated.
Sure.
Sales hates all of these like leads, inbound leads that come through. And it's like John Doe at yahoo.com
Right.
is the email address. It's
Right.
like, get out of here, man. That is not a lead,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I'm a huge proponent of we all get the same goal. We got one goal. We're supposed to do, 10 million this year. That's our goal. And Joanna
Sure.
and Scott get comped based on whether or not we
Based
hit
on
10
that.
million.
Yeah.
That's it. Period.
Right.
Don't care how we do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the split is. I don't want to hear this trash of like, well, 40% has to come from marketing driven, because then you and I are fighting over attribution and stuff like that. And it's like, no, I don't care. Nobody cares. I come from a sporting background. All right. And I played college soccer and some semi-professional soccer. It's like you win 1-0, 2-0. Nobody cares who scored.
Right.
Nobody's going around saying, well, the defense scored and the offense didn't do its job. It's like, no, we either won or we lost, period.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it. Everybody's
absolutely.
got a job to do. We might win this game because the defense dominated. We might win the next game because the offense dominated. We might win this
Right.
quarter because marketing crushed it. We might win the next
Right.
quarter because sales crushed it. So I really believe that is a huge systemic problem, and eliminating that gets everybody way more
Sure.
aligned on things. And the last thing that I would say is the way that we write and the way that we talk, our copy, is very different in sales than in marketing.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely.
different. And marketing copy doesn't work for salespeople, and sales copy doesn't work for marketing
Right.
people. And we have to understand there is a time and place and a moment for each of this type of copy. You've got to fit it in the right slot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So this goes back to the communication style. We need to make sure that we're talking roughly the same language. In my work with clients, I see marketing fixated on, pain point number one, right? But I'm having conversations with the sales team and they're like, pain point number one doesn't sell.
Doesn't mean
Nobody
anything.
cares
Yeah.
about
They
pain
don't care.
point number
Yeah.
one. Everybody cares about pain point number two.
Right.
And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
marketing, why are we talking about pain point number one if sales only cares about pain point number two?
Yeah.
So the messaging and the way we write has to be suitable for certain scenarios. Like, I don't like when marketing departments are writing email copy for salespeople to use because it's not the right style. And
Right.
I don't like if I get on a website and I read the copy and it looks like a very direct, assertive kind of salesperson wrote it. That doesn't
Sure. Yeah. There's
work.
a balance, right?
Yeah. So those are my three. That's my three-pronged rant about sales
Sure.
and marketing getting on the same page.
Sure. And we actually have started putting in something here where because we get feedback from sales, like we see like why a lead's unqualified, things like that. So first of all, we did all align to like the meeting. If a meeting doesn't happen, who cares? Like and then we're working down the funnel. Like now we're really aligned to revenue, but we started like, let's just make sure meetings are happening, right? But like we're all responsible for making those meetings happen, and then we support the sales team in closing those deals. Like that's sort of that's how we started, and now it's all about what's the revenue, right? But one of the things that we were seeing in our process is we'd get like feedback from our sales team, which was very helpful. I was like, I want to hear your calls, and not because I care about how you're selling. Like this isn't like I'm giving you a grade on your sales. I want to hear what the prospect is actually saying,
Yeah.
because my marketing brain may hear it differently for marketing purposes, or I can do different types of content for like to kind of provide air cover and things like that. And so now that we're now recording and transcribing all of our calls and like running those through AI and like getting trends. And it's really unlocking something because it gives the sales team trends for what they're saying, but it gives us things that we can be like, hey, we hear this a lot. Do you need a one pager for this?
Yeah.
But like if they're all in their own silos, they may not see that it's a trend, right? And so I think for me, it's like the tools that we have now are so. I mean, again, you still have to be kind of like you can't just use the tools and not understand why something's a thing. Like you still have to understand why it's a thing, even if it's telling you, hey, this is the trend. You still need to like get to the bottom of it. But I'm curious in like sort of how you've integrated AI tools into either enablement or sort of supporting sales teams as you've continued to sort of to grow them. And or if you do, if you're like, I actually don't, and here's why.
No, we definitely do. Definitely
Yeah,
do.
and not
I
for writing
think,
emails because I know AI emails can be kind of garbagey, but for like other
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. The insight part that you talked about is huge. The research part that you talked about, in particular, if you're selling to bigger enterprises, Fortune
Mhm.
500, things like that, um, the ability for sales reps to get real time feedback and coaching. I mean, you could use an AI coaching tool,
Yeah.
and those are growing. The number one complaint among salespeople is that they don't get enough coaching. And the number one complaint from a sales manager is that they don't have enough time to do coaching. Okay,
Right.
well that's solved by
Yeah.
AI coaching, for example. So it is increasingly baked into everybody's kind of workflow and day to day. I think that any sales org not using it is going to they're going to struggle to keep up.
Right.
Frankly,
Right. Yeah.
they really are going to struggle to keep up. The danger is to be over reliant upon it.
Right. Yeah. Like you don't know
You
why the result is the result. Like you're kind of
yeah
just like, it's a thing. But
yeah. At that
yeah.
point, you're just like a glorified paper pusher in a way.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just sort of typing one or two things in and copy pasting this over here, and you're putting things into motion and you have no idea why it's happening or why you're even doing it. And you're just
Right.
like, you can't think
Yeah.
for yourself. You don't understand the situation at all. Somebody else is
Yeah.
doing all of the thinking for you. You used the example of I think you said emails, but emails or even content. It's not good enough yet where you can trust it 100%.
Right.
So, if I wanted to write an email because I was prospecting Joanna, maybe I would say, hey, here's Joanna's profile. There's a LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
profile. Review the last 50 posts that she's made. Here's her personal website. Here's the ClearVoice website. If you're a publicly traded company, here's some information about there. Scroll through the internet, find podcasts that she's been on, figure out what she cares about. She lives in Oklahoma City now. What the heck goes on in Oklahoma City? And
Nothing.
personalize an email for her. I'm trying to get a hold of
Sure.
her. Well, it's going to shoot something over that's probably 60% as good as I want it to be right now. That's
Right. Yeah.
my guess, right? So I got to run
Sure.
the last mile or two and fix it up. If I want to write a LinkedIn post or a blog post, same deal. It's going to come back at 60, 70% quality for now. So too many people are just pushing those out for the sake of speed, for the sake of the old volume game, perhaps, that everybody was playing. And we're at a place where I think everybody is extremely suspicious of any piece of written content at all, and whether or not
Yeah.
it's authentically human. I mean, I could send you an email when we're done with this podcast thanking you, and there's going to be 1% at least of your brain that's like, did Scott actually write this, or did he chat GPT this thing? I think that's our default now, right?
Yeah. For sure.
So
Yeah.
we have to try harder and harder and harder to prove our humanity. And I think there's going to be a
Hmm.
backlash at some point, because when everything is AI and automated and all this kind of stuff, the only way to be unique and different is to do unscalable things that prove your humanity,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Uh,
there's a really great there's a book called Giftology. I don't know if you've ever read it. It was written by a man named John Ruhlin, and the kind of the world of what he taught was about like delighting people through gifts as a door opener for,
mm,
I mean, not only as a door opener, like he truly liked giving gifts, but that it's really a way to open up referrals and sort of the world of sales without being, because it's super authentic and it's super
yeah,
personalized to the person, and it's not just for the person, but I remember his talk is about give the partner a gift, think about the kids, think about the assistants. Like it's not just
yeah,
about that like buyer where you're just like throwing treats at them
stuff.
hoping they'll
Yeah,
call
yeah.
you back, you
There's
know.
there's a gift right here if anybody's on video. that thing. That
Hmm.
is a black and white old photograph of Willie Mays making his famous catch. I'm a San Francisco Giants fan, and this is one of the most iconic moments in franchise history. Okay.
Sure.
Well, I had a partner, a company that I partnered with, and I was an advisor to them years ago. They've sold for a couple $1 billion now. And as a thank you, at one point for making a couple introductions, the CEO of the company sent me this photograph, and it's autographed by Willie Mays.
Wow,
And
that's cool.
I'm like, this is really cool. Like that picture and that effort that he made
Hmm.
to know that about me and put this thing together and know that I would care about it was way more valuable than if he, I don't know, bonused me $1,000 or
Sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
This is a perfect example of like how to send somebody, the right type of gift
Hmm.
that can either open a relationship, strengthen the bond of a relationship, right? Motivate somebody to keep going. It's like, well, I want to help. I want to help this guy now for sure,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Have you seen anything like in any of the sales programs that you've built? Have you ever kind of layered in that type of program where, I mean, I
Sure.
know that you can't do that for everybody. Like, there's a limit, but maybe
Yeah.
tiered, for tiered accounts. And I mean, again, I hate to sound so transactional about it, but what did that look like when you've kind of brought that in?
Well, first of all, yes, I've done it quite a bit. I'm a I'm a big believer in it. I mean, I have so many funny stories. Like, I tell this story sometimes. I had these two guys who kept telling me that they didn't have time to make a decision, and they were two partners in a business, and they lived in Chicago, and one guy was a White Sox fan, and the other guy was a Chicago Cubs fan.
Okay.
And so I had the idea. I looked at the schedule, and the White Sox were playing the Cubs, and so I mailed the guys 2 tickets to the game, and I said, "You guys go to the game. You'll have 4 hours together. Take a picture while you're at the game and send me the picture, just saying hi or whatever, and you'll have time to talk about whether or not you should do this." They didn't ask me to do it. I just mailed them 2 tickets.
Yeah.
So I get a text message. They took like a little selfie at the game, and they said, "Hey, thanks for
Sure.
the game. We had time to talk about it. Call me on Monday." And sure as shit, they bought on Monday. And there is lots of stories like that. And now, when people pick up the phone less than ever before, they respond to email less than ever before, you have got to get extremely creative. So, within the rules and regulations of your industry,
Right.
the
Yeah.
corporate gifting strategy is a good one. The direct mail strategy is a good one. The get in front of your customers. Hey, I'm in Oklahoma City. I'm visiting some people. Can I buy you a coffee or a smoothie or something?
Yeah.
That stuff is mattering more and more and more again. And that's how you're going to stand out. And so it has been a part. It continues to be a part of the strategies we deploy. It's not the only strategy, but it is a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even just the offer sometimes is like enough. Not that we don't want to follow up on an offer that we make, but even just being like, well, hey, thanks for reaching, even if I'm not available, thanks for reaching out. Like, it's
Yeah.
normally, I'm out of town, but like, it's awesome that you thought of me if you're coming to Oklahoma City, kind of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So no, that's interesting. So I think, I'm very fascinated by revenue operations as well and sort of thinking through. So we talked a lot about sales, but I'm curious on the revenue operations side and the sales ops side. What are some, I mean, we talked about documentation and things like that, but for those rev ops professionals that are listening, is there any sort of thinking that you would want to instill into them to support the sales apparatus as well? That's a
You know,
really
my
broad
my
question. So thanks for
yeah, my favorite RevOps people are people who came from a sales background
Sure.
because they know what the job of a salesperson was. Or maybe they were a SDR manager or a sales manager. They know what that job is like as well. So it's less of a stretch for them to understand the pains of everything. You know,
Sure.
if you just take some Salesforce sysadmin and grow them into a RevOps person, they've never cold called somebody before.
Right.
They've
Yeah.
never managed 10 people before. So they think in this binary ones and zeros kind of way sometimes.
Sure.
If we do this,
Sure.
this should happen. It's like, oh, you're forgetting all of the nuanced junk that we have to deal with over here.
Yeah.
So that's my first sort of hack, if you will,
Sure.
or piece of advice is maybe do the job for the people that you're supporting. You don't have to make it like your career or whatever, but why not stick the RevOps person on the phone for a week or two?
Yeah.
Same thing with marketing. Why not have them go work in the marketing department for 2 weeks on a little project or two to better understand it? Same thing with marketing and sales, by the way. I'd love to take a couple
Hmm.
marketing
Oh,
people
trade
and
these.
say, hey,
Absolutely.
I'll trade you roles for a couple days,
Yeah.
And so now, okay, all of a sudden we're more sympathetic to what everybody else does. I think there's a lot of wisdom in doing that. I think that RevOps people, they kind of, I think, are having a moment right now
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
because they are more technical than salespeople or marketing people. This is a very generalized sentence, but I think in
Yeah.
general they probably are. They're more technical than me, at least. Um,
Right.
but I think that they have to be careful because I think that the tools are becoming so brain dead simple to use that any old idiot like me can figure it out, and those roles might be rendered useless at some point in time.
Sure.
So, what is their strategic advantage? So, they're going to have to be on top of every single latest and greatest piece of
Right.
technology. They're going to have to be well versed in everything hitting the market. Like, if you're a RevOps person and I'm kind of in a discovery process with you and I'm saying, hey,
Hmm.
Joanna, what do you think about Lovable versus Midjourney versus whatever? And you're like, oh, I'm not really familiar with those. That's going to be a massive red flag.
Right.
And red flag enough where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if she's keeping up with the latest and greatest. I better work with somebody else. So I think that they need to be in learning mode all the time,
Sure.
which is hard to do when you're supposed to
Yeah.
be executing all day long, all day long. So, how are they spending their free time? We all have to have lives outside of work, yes, but how are you paying attention to things? You're driving around,
Sure.
shuttling your kids all over the place. Are you listening to music? Are you listening to a podcast about the latest and greatest tools and stuff like that? I mean, silly little things, but I'm constantly trying to find ways to insert learning into my day.
Right.
For
Yeah.
example, I built a sauna in my backyard, and I struggle to find time to read. And I used to read all the time. Well, now what I do is I take my book into the sauna, and for the
Hmm.
first 10 to 15 minutes before I get too sweaty and ruin the
Right.
book,
I was like,
I
and the book
read.
by the end is just
Yeah, it's destroyed by the end. But I spend like 10 minutes a
right.
day reading, and I'm like, okay, is that perfect? No. Is that enough? No. But it's 10 more minutes than I would have got before. You have to find ways to bake this learning into your day. So for the RevOps people, I think they have to be constantly curious and constantly learning. I think they need to put themselves into the shoes of marketers and salespeople and try to get some of that experience.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. And they're going to have to
Yeah. I
find a
mean,
way to tie their performance into the revenue impact of the business.
yeah, absolutely. And that's, I mean, the our director of RevOps, Donnie, like he does make calls. Like
Good. That's great.
he actually will take any inbound that doesn't immediately book, and he's like, I'm gonna follow up with these guys for a month or two, or like I'm gonna do 2 months of just like I'm the first call just to see what it's like for the AEs having to do that. And then he's done outbounds. In fact, he did an outbound that has a very large contract value that we're waiting to close, and it was like he was like, I did that. I was like, good job, man. Like, I mean, this is
Good
like
for him.
great because now while we're training other SDRs, like he's has a raw authority on the enablement side to talk through it. And I think that that's really helpful because the more that everybody can know about these types of things, the more fluent we all are, the better that we as a team can be, right? I mean, we have to have our expertise. Like as marketing, I have an expertise in marketing, but I've made it my mission to understand more about the sales apparatus. I was a BDR earlier in my career, so I understand that piece of it. But I'm like, if I don't understand what these guys are saying and doing what they need to close a deal, then I can't do anything in marketing that's going to, I mean, I can do stuff in marketing, but now I'm just driving MQLs,
But not as effectively.
right? Like versus
Yeah.
providing the proper air cover and then giving them the like
Yeah.
gust of wind in the sail to close a deal, which is kind of how I look at marketing in a
Yeah.
revenue machine as
Yeah.
opposed
Yeah.
to mean, we got to be both tip of the spear and the wind in the sails, right? That's to me what marketing is. So I'm curious. I think this is going to be my last big thing question, but you've worked with a lot of different types of salespeople, a lot of different types of personalities, I'm sure,
Oh
introvert,
yeah.
extrovert, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm curious for a sales leader that might be listening, they've got a team, or even a marketing leader that sort of really works with a big team of salespeople and helps service them. What are the different sort of like are there any trends or sort of broad strokes like personality types and sort of like ways of selling that you've seen out there that we can kind of keep in mind to support? It's kind of like thinking about different types of learning. Some people learn orally, visually, or kinesthetically. Is there kind of a similar breakdown in the salespeople world that we can sort of support, if you will?
Well, there's the sort of old school, type A personality salesperson that is, loud, life of the party, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way.
Right.
There's the sort of quiet confidence, just goes about their business type archetype. There's the overthinker, the overanalyzer, the perfectionist type person who moves really, really slow and calculated, and sometimes is really effective and sometimes just can't run the race fast enough. There's the person who's lacking self-confidence, and it actually doesn't matter what you arm them with or how good their knowledge of the product and industry is. If you don't heal that person's defective
Sure.
insecurity, they're
Right.
not going to thrive. There's the salesperson who's just kind of happy to be here and comfortable with making 100K. And there's the salesperson who is very entrepreneurial, who's always looking to double what they earned last year and
Sure.
is very motivated and hustling all the time. These are some of the major archetypes. What are you
Yeah.
looking for in a salesperson? I think a couple things that are a little different than they used to be. I think you've got to look for somebody who's very creative. You didn't have to
Mm,
be creative to be in sales. You just had to be a good soldier. 20 something years
sure.
ago,
Follow the
20
scripts,
something
do
years
the thing.
ago, I would just be like, Joanna, tell me what to do. And you're like, here's the script. Here's the people to
Sure.
call. Go sell. Don't ask questions. Do your job. Run up the damn hill. Right. And that worked. That doesn't work anymore. Now you need somebody who's thinking creatively, like, okay, what gift can I send somebody? Or what
Sure. Yeah.
event can I try to put together in Oklahoma City? How do I get this
Hmm.
person's attention somehow? What random subject line might work on an email,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I think you have to become an extremely good writer. That was not a job requirement to be in sales. In fact, most salespeople of my age or older would probably tell you one of the reasons they got into sales is because they're not good at math,
They'd be on
English,
marketing,
some of
right?
these
Yeah.
normal kind of things we grew up with having to be good at in school. It's like
Sure.
we kind of sucked at that stuff, but we were, kind of charming maybe, and like
Sure.
to talk, so we ended up in sales. That's not good enough anymore. You got to be a freaking journalism major these days, right?
Sure.
What's one of the easiest ways to generate leads for yourself? It's creating content. It's building a
Mm,
network. I got 125,000 followers on LinkedIn now. I've been writing posts damn near every day for 7, 8 years. All of my business comes through these social platforms and creating content. If I didn't know how to write and didn't practice at it, that's a whole channel that disappears,
right.
right? And so much of communication is over email or Slack messages even now. So you've got to be a good writer. You continue to have to be curious and interested in
Yep.
learning and growing. You've got a lot of salespeople now who are like, I don't need these new tools. I don't need this AI thing. Just give me the phone book and the phone. It's like, okay, pal, it doesn't work when nobody answers the phone anymore.
Right.
You're in
Yeah.
trouble, right? So you really got to find people who are curious and interested in the latest and greatest kind of trends. And some of the traditional stuff still matters. People who are competitive, people who are
Right.
driven,
Yeah.
people who are ambitious, people who are good listeners, people who ask good questions, people who are very good at minutia and details, which is not a strong suit of most salespeople, but the
Hmm.
salespeople that stand out the most. One of the fastest ways to get ahead in sales is, in addition to being a good salesperson, you're actually good at detail and
Oh,
entering information and following up with people the right
you're
way. It's
singing
like,
to the marketer
that's
over here
the
right now. Where I'm like,
easiest way to stand
yeah,
out in sales. In fact, years ago, I used to tell people who'd come to me and say, how do I move into sales leadership? I'm like, well, just be good at details. Just do what you said you're going to do. They're like, oh,
yeah,
I'm not good at that stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's why you're going to be in salesperson forever and not a sales
right,
leader, right?
yeah.
So, you're looking for those types of things now. And if I'm looking for an A+ player, like that's what I'm kind of looking for.
It's interesting that you talk about the content piece, because I think that that's one of the most interesting. Like the salesperson having their own personal brand is,
Has to
and
happen.
employee advocacy and things like that. It's I see teams struggle with that, and I see organizations struggle with how do we enable our marketing teams, how do we enable our salespeople to do that, and all of that. And I think if they're not willing to just pick that mantle up themselves to some extent, like you can give them as much ammunition as you can, but if they're not inclined to do that work,
Yeah.
it's a thing. But I know it's incredibly important.
So you got to make it part of their goals and KPIs.
Right.
The
Yep.
same way that you would yell at me 20 years ago, Scott, you got to make 100 calls a day.
Right.
My daily KPI should be network growth. You should be tracking how many people I add to my network. Let's say you have a salespeople at ClearVoice that doesn't want to create content. I would say, fine, don't create content. What I need you to do is send 15 to 20 new connection requests out every single day. And I'm
Yeah.
going to track your progress. Because inevitably, if you just grow your network, you'll start to get messages from people
Right.
and they'll start to get hooked. It's like the first hit of the crack pipe. They get a little bit hooked. All of a sudden people are
Yeah.
messaging them. They're having to message other people. It's like, oh, now you're hooked. Then all of a sudden they're on the platform a little bit more. And now they see some strangers making posts and they're like, oh, I don't agree with that. I'm going to comment here. Or I do agree with
Sure.
that. I'm going to comment. And now they're
Sure.
commenting on other people's posts and they're getting a little closer to authoring their own content. So that's how you start somebody. You just say, I need you to grow your network. There's no world where having a large network is a disadvantage in sales.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I like the nice thing about LinkedIn too is like, unlike if you had to grow on Instagram or on Facebook, where there's just like this doom scrolling abyss that you can fall into. There's not as much of that on LinkedIn. Like there's a lot of like AI garbage on LinkedIn, but it's still just like sometimes you just like professional platitudes that are, maybe you'll get
Yeah.
some sort of aha out of it, And some people are really good at it, right? Like your posts are very valuable and provide a lot of information
It's a
and
little
aha
easier to
moments.
filter out the junk on
It
LinkedIn
100%
compared to
is,
the other
right?
platforms.
Yeah.
And what's easier about the growth is it's people's real names and their real background.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
I
not
get followers on
Candyland
Instagram.
54.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
some follower Candyland 54 on Instagram. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? I don't know who
Right.
you are.
Yeah. You're like,
So,
you're like, hi, go private profile now. All
yeah.
these random people.
What I usually do is when people ask me questions, I usually say, hey, here's my LinkedIn profile. DM me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to have a conversation with you. So I try to
Yeah.
migrate these anonymized
Right.
chats from a platform like TikTok or Instagram over to
Right.
LinkedIn so I can
Right.
figure out who the hell is this person I'm talking to?
Sure.
Are they real? And, if they're willing to take that extra step, then I feel like, oh, they're a little bit more serious. Maybe it's a little bit more qualified as a lead or whatever.
Yeah. Is the salesperson, like, are you seeing more instances of the salesperson brand carrying, like, being the next, like, being the bridge to the next job for them? Like, you
Oh,
used to
that
hire
is
AEs that would
hundred
like have a
percent
book,
accurate.
right?
No, no, no.
Yeah. Like,
That's 100% accurate. Yes.
yeah.
You put two candidates side by side next to each other who in all other metrics are equal. And one person has 2,000 connections and the other one has 20,000 connections.
Sure.
I'm taking the 20,000 person
Sure.
every single time. If you look at it from a how to get hired perspective, nobody, asterisk, nobody is getting hired because they're blindly applying to jobs or
Oh,
or,
sure.
or
Yeah.
getting
Absolutely.
stuck in a ATS system. The only
Right.
way you're getting interviews now is because somebody
Right.
somebody who knows somebody who's hiring and an introduction is
Absolutely.
made. And this is also the fastest growing revenue channel that's out there, is the personal referral channel. This
Yeah.
go to network motion that I've been talking about for 2 years. I'm friends with Joanna. Joanna knows Johnny, and Johnny is who I want to talk to. So I tell Joanna, hey, I'm going to give you 10% of this deal if I close
Sure.
it. Do you know Johnny well enough to make an intro? You're
Right.
like, yeah, sure. I trust Scott.
Yep.
He's a good dude. So you go to Johnny and you're like, hey, my buddy Scott wants to talk to you. They solve XYZ. I don't know if you have that problem or not, but if you do, he's
Sure.
a good guy. I trust him. He's not going to waste your time, blah, blah, blah. And Johnny's over here going, well, I trust Joanna. She trusts Scott.
Right.
I
Yeah.
do kind of have that problem. Sure, I'll take the meeting. All three parties are happy at that point.
Right. Exactly.
Right? It's a win-win-win for everybody. This is the fastest, easiest, most cost-effective revenue channel that there is, that 99% of orgs don't do anything with.
Sure. Absolutely. I think we'll bring you back in 3 months and be like, let's break this down now. Or actually, is there any place, I mean, aside from your LinkedIn, like, do you have any, like, do you have a course or anything like that people could go check out? We don't normally do that on this, but it's such a valuable thing.
I have a free asset that I built, and I'm happy to send it to anybody who DMs me on LinkedIn about how to install this very simple go-to-network playbook. This is the easiest way to scale your revenue. And you don't risk any brand damage from over cold calling or over emailing.
Yeah.
Your salespeople are not scared of it. It's you're just talking to people that they know. Customer acquisition cost is super low, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I did $1 million in revenue for one of my vendor partners last year. They paid me 10% of what closed. That's $100,000. If I was an AE, they would have probably paid me $300,000 for that $1 million.
Sure. Yeah.
So they shaved their customer acquisition costs by 2/3.
Right.
And you don't have to have a lot of salespeople. In fact, the early stage founders that I work with, I tell them, don't hire any salespeople. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to install this motion, and I'm going to show you how it works.
Sure.
So you use your board, you use your VCs, you use friends and family, you use LinkedIn influencers. You don't just sign up one version of Scott. You sign up 10, you sign up 50, you sign up 100. I mean, this thing compounds upon itself so quickly. I tend to know about 5 to 6% of my first degree connections well enough that I can text straight away. So if ClearVoice sent me a list of 100 prospects that I'm first degree connections with that you want to get a hold of, I have 5 of them in the bag for sure. And your average contract value is what?
30,000, 30 to
okay,
50.
So I just opened 150K of pipeline for you.
Exactly.
In 2 seconds. Right? Now multiply that by 10 of me. That's 1.5 million.
Right.
Multiply it by 100 of me. $15 million of pipeline can get opened this week easy if you just ran this motion. So the question becomes, why don't people run this motion? And I don't know the answer to that, because all of my orgs run this motion.
Sure. Awesome. Well, we'll make
ClearVoice challenge. The gauntlet has been thrown.
I know. I'm like, all right. Well, and we'll definitely include that download in the show notes and everywhere. But I'm also running to go grab that immediately, right? Like I have seen the gauntlet get thrown at my feet as well here in this conversation. So I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much for your time today. I think I could probably keep this conversation going for another hour if we wanted to, but we'll pick it up another time in the future and continue. We'll come back and talk about how that go-to-network motion is working for us, and we'll break it down to a case study. But I really appreciate the time. Is there any final words of wisdom for sales, marketing, RevOps that you would want to put in, just to provide a button here?
I would say get creative, get communicative, and keep learning all the time, because everything is changing. It's changing faster than it ever has. And that's the only way to kind of be in lockstep and keep up with everything.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I do hope to have you back again soon. Thanks for tuning in to today's ClearVoice Marketers in Conversation. If you're ready to stop wiping out and start riding the wave between marketing and sales, hit subscribe and stay tuned for more insights from top performers who've been there and surfed it all. And if you need content to help scale your business, reach out to www.clearvoice.com.